Hey everyone, welcome to the Wed Into War podcast. This is like the kitchen sink of our organization. The front door, of course, being the conference. By the way, we have one of those coming up in just a few short weeks
February
here.
21st.
And the living room would be like our Bible study, small group study. But here, we're just kind of throwing everything at the kitchen sink and
Yep.
seeing what sticks. And I know that's two different analogies,
We're
but I'm going
literally
with
at
it.
the kitchen sink.
Yes,
no
we're at
matter
the
how
kitchen
much
sink
of a
this time. We're
pain this
trying
is.
it. And so today I want to, try and get through a pretty big topic.
Yeah.
What to do when you're at the edge of the end.
Hmm.
What to do when your relationship feels like there's no hope, all hope is lost, there's no way forward. And I think this is, honestly, here's what I think. I think that this is a question that every couple has to answer.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody just slides through.
I think maybe a couple times.
Yeah.
I mean, for us, as we've been at the edge of the end, 2, maybe 3 times.
Depending on who you talk to. Yeah. At what season.
Which one of us?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, and it makes sense because marriage is hard.
Yeah.
It's really, really difficult. And if you really think about it, I mean, here you are as a young 20s, probably making this decision that's going to have a 60-year consequence. Sometimes you're making that decision in a vacuum with no wisdom, just going off pure dopamine and serotonin. And you're just like, I want to be with this person forever, not realizing that what you're really signing up for is not only the trauma that they've gone through as a child. And I was thinking about this. In a lot of ways, marriage and adoption are really similar in my mind. Because when I come to you and I make a monogamous covenant, I'm here to stay. I'm really saying that I'm going to adopt the child version of you whilst also caring for the child version of myself.
Yeah.
And what we found, at least, is that our child trauma is actually very combustible with each other, which is maybe the mind of God in putting us together to finally and fully deal with this stuff. But yeah, so I mean, in a lot of ways, we are set up to fail on this thing. And how does that hit you?
I mean, I think when you get married, whether you're young or whether you're a little bit more mature or settled, there's always going to be this, like, you don't know what you don't know. And so you're walking in feeling fully prepared and in love, and we can take the world and we can do anything together. And then you get about 3, 6, 9 months in and you're like, what? What are you? Everything that person probably used to direct at the world is now directed to you because you are their world.
Right.
And you start realizing, like, there's a lot of trigger points. There's a lot of things that, why am I feeling this way? What, I love this person. And so I think it's just one of those things that you don't really know till you know.
Yeah.
And like, what happens once you get to that place of like, I don't think we're going to make it. I don't think that this is actually good for us.
Right.
Like, what do you do then? Where's that book?
Yeah.
Where's that podcast?
It's Wed Into War.
Yeah, actually. It is. It's right here.
I was at the gym today and I'm on the stairs and I'm going for an hour, and so I'm at about minute 35 on the stairs. And the lady who worked at Planet.
You said you're going for an hour, but at a minute and 35 seconds,
at minute
you were already.
No, at minute 35.
Oh, okay.
The lady who works there comes up. And I am dripping sweat. Like, it is disgusting.
A minute and 35 seconds in.
35 minutes in. Try and track with me here. I'm 35 minutes in.
Sorry, I did not get
and
that.
I am dumping sweat. It looks like a sweat graveyard
Gross.
below me, and it's splat. There's a splash zone.
We're good.
And the lady comes up and she starts cleaning the machine off while I'm on it.
No.
Seriously, this happened today. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, what?
Did she not see?
No, I'm obviously there.
Yeah.
She's in the splash zone at this point, and I'm just thinking to myself,
That's
like,
disgusting.
Nobody wants you cleaning up your mess while you're making it, and that like jogged my thinking about this conversation is like, it is so hard to come in and try and do damage control when the house is on fire, when it's a hot dumpster fire, and nobody likes that. Nobody wants that.
No.
And so really, we're calling this what to do when you're at the edge of the end, but I hope that it's finding you in a moment where maybe you can prevent the edge of the end, or maybe you can rethink it, re-strategize on what that could be, maybe how that could be different. And so I kind of just wanted to start here. I think that when we've gotten to the edge of the end, the things that kept us going was the promise. It was the power of the promise to stay. I actually wrote down this quote. I thought it was so good. This is from Nietzsche. From
Carl Jung.
Jung. According to Carl Jung, marriage requires total commitment to unlock its full transformative potential. And so when I come with you and we stand before God and we make a divine covenant, but we're also standing before our people, our family, our friends, we're making a localized covenant.
Yeah.
What we're communicating is that I am promising before God and my family and friends that I will stay no matter what. And so that actually allows you to be your true and authentic self.
Right.
And guess what? It gives us 60 years to even figure out how to get there.
Yeah.
Because we often don't know how to get there.
Yeah.
And so I think once our true authentic selves are out and exposed, but in a place that is safe and accepted, that's where we can actually change.
Yeah.
And transform.
That's true.
Yeah. Interact with that.
Interact with it. I mean, I think the idea that there is safety in marriage, I think there's phases, right? So when you are first married, there's this phase of like the honeymoon is starting to dwindle and you're starting to get a little like, wait, are you who I thought you were? So I feel like there is almost like a, buzzword, a deconstruction of what you thought you were going to, your life was going to be together, what you thought your marriage was going to be. And I actually think that deconstruction is the most beautiful part because it brings couples to the edge of the end. And then when you make the commitment to walk back from the cliff, like that walk back is actually the most powerful point. I think for us, the walk back of saying like, no, we're going to do it again. We're going to go one more round. We're going to go one more year. We're going to go one more day. But I think it has to get to that point of kind of unraveling. Like we wouldn't be as in love and committed if I didn't know your child self, like I didn't know that part of you existed the day of our wedding.
And in a lot of ways, I didn't either.
Yeah, same.
He was uncovered through the process
of marriage,
of conflict.
Yeah,
honestly.
Yeah.
It's like scared to get to the edge of the end and then turn around to walk it back, hoping the other one's not going to push you off.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the commitment of knowing like I can let my true self be known because I know that Tyson's not going anywhere. Right. And it's, it's like what we say at the conference, like it's putting yourself out there and opening your eyes and hoping that your spouse is still there. And when they are, man, that moment it's everything.
Yeah. I mean, I love the ideology that we've kind of clung to, is that a word? Clinged to, is that, I'm not going to go anywhere, but I refuse to let you stay as you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, I'm fighting like hell to get you to become who God is transforming you to be.
Yeah. I do want to put a caveat in here before we get too far into this, is that like, we're not talking about when there's abuse in marriage. We're not talking about when there's active abuse in marriage. It's not like you should stay no matter what. I think there's actually been a lot of damage done.
Yeah, I'm not saying stay no matter what.
By the church to say that marriage is the end all be all, divorce is against God's word. And so women for years and men have stayed in abusive marriages to try to keep this commitment.
I mean, we know some men right now that are staying in abusive marriages.
Right, yeah.
And we're like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah. So that's not what we're saying. I think it is saying bringing your whole self to the table and saying, will you walk with me into healing together?
Yeah. And I mean, while we're on the topic, I think it's worth talking about. You find yourself at the edge of the end because there's abuse, spiritual, physical, emotional abuse are all the things I'm talking about here. And so how do you determine, are we at the end? Is this the end?
Good question.
And I think that honestly, the truth is found in the start. When you made a covenant to your spouse before God and his people, it's his people. It's the community of people that are going to be able to speak that. Like the Bible says that truth is found, wisdom is found in the mouth of many counselors. Yeah. And so this thing, marriage, it's completed when God decides. That's the great thing that Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount. He said that what God has joined together, let no man put asunder, let no man rip apart. And so the idea there is God has joined us together. No man can separate us. It's only God who has the authority to actually say this thing has run its course. It's finished. It's designed and it's ready to be pulled apart. And then he's the great surgeon that's going to make that happen. But how do we determine, well, I heard God say we're done, How do we determine that? I think it's in the mouth of the community. So it's this beautiful tension of like, the community doesn't get to say that it's over. But the community together can show you what the heart of God is. And if the marriage has run its course, if it's fulfilled its purpose, is a way to think about it. And so, I think it's by design that we have this rite of passage, the wedding, and that we're surrounded by people. And I think we need to stay surrounded by people. I think a problem that we really have is, especially as seasons change, and we're going to talk about seasons eventually, probably in this conversation, but as seasons change, as you find your marriage, and we're married to different people, in the span of one lifetime. Like we're going
on 16 years, and I've married 4 versions of Tyson,
and I've married 75 versions of Jules. Wow. Or people change every 7 years or whatever. We've changed locations, we've changed states, we've changed jobs. We're changing.
Yeah,
our dreams are being chiseled down into focus, and I mean all these things are happening, and so we are radically different people. Right. But in every season, you have to fight to surround yourself with community. You fight to surround yourself with people who can look at what's happening and be like, at least be there as a sounding board when you need it. One of the things I hate when people say is that unsolicited advice is wasted. I want to flip that on its head, and I want to say I'm soliciting advice from anyone who will give it. Like I want everyone who will give it. Yeah. Like you need that note. I want anyone who's willing to give it to have an option to speak into this thing, from my kids to my friends to my enemies, because I want to be sincere. I want this marriage to be real and true and authentic, and I want it to go the distance.
Yeah.
So we find ourselves in a pretty lonely season ourselves right now. So how do we build this community? How do we keep these people around us?
I mean, I think building community it's difficult because of the season that we're in currently. I think we like people. Neither of us are introverts. And so it's a little bit easier for us to get to know the people around us. And but I think building actual community, people not just that hang out with us, but people that know us and that are in our world, and they're speaking into our parenting and speaking to our marriage. You have to do consistent life with them. You have to go through the awkward, ugly phase of like, so how many brothers and sisters do you have? And, what's your favorite color? You kind of have to go through the like, stand next to each other in the carpool line, and I think that's the part where a lot of people give up. It's where I give up.
Thank you for not saying kids' birthdays.
You have to go to your kids' friends' birthday parties. Oh, no. You have to meet the mom at the park. You have to go.
Is there alcohol at this one? No. Okay.
You have to go.
I'll take a juice box.
A juice box.
And a corner of loneliness. Thank you.
You have to go talk to the other dads at the birthday party. Yeah. I think that's the piece that we just have to like normalize and say like, it's awkward AF to make friends as parents, as adults. And once you get past that, I think of actually some friends of ours that we met at the pool, and you actually met the husband at the pool because you were both extroverts and you guys were throwing your kids around in the pool, and me and the wife were kind of like in our own little, like, this is our moment to like sit in the sun and not talk to anybody. So I'm not trying to make friends right now. And she had a baby. And I just remember thinking like, I really want to be friends with these people, but I know that it's going to take so much work, and we all have so many kids that I don't think it's going to work. And over the last, 2-3 years, it's just been consistent play dates and pool time. And now we do dinner church together. And now they're like some of our really, really good friends. Yeah. And I think knowing that friendship and community is going to take time, and it's going to take consistent bite-sized efforts.
But what I hear you saying is throw out a bunch of invitations.
Yeah, just go.
Some are going to stick, some aren't.
And it's going to feel really awkward. It's never going to feel great to meet a stranger.
Right. I was hoping you'd share about like the board of trustees idea.
The board of trustees, the table that lives in my head.
Yeah.
So the idea of friendship is actually, it's not original. I got it from a girl named Laura Tremaine, and she wrote a book called The Life Council. And she talks about how in everybody's life, there's a table of friends. There's your battle buddy. There's your work bestie. There's the yes friend. There's the person that's going to show up no matter, the dumpster fire friend, and that, and in season and out of season, we have people in each of those seats. And sometimes those friends can change seats, and sometimes those friends leave the seats, and sometimes new friends come in the seats. But I think if you have like a visual picture, I think in the context of marriage, if you sit down with your spouse and you say, okay, who is at our table? Who's our battle? Who's the couple that's going to show up? Christina and Ish is a perfect idea. When
Yeah.
we were at the edge of the end, we were like, I think this is it. I think Ty and Jules, we're done. I don't want to play anymore. You were exhausted. I was exhausted. And
Which a version of us was dying.
yeah, we were dying. We were done.
going into a new season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Christina and Ishmael got on a plane and came and sat on this couch.
Yeah.
And they sat with us and validated, you're both right and you're both wrong. And this is really hard. And so sitting down and saying, who are the people that are going to show up for us when everything hits the fan? And who are the friends that we want to invest in? Like,
Yeah.
we have to build community together. So who are the couples around us that we're like, okay, we could put more time here and more time here. And is that what you mean?
Yeah. And I think Christine is a great example because she's a friend. And this is important as you're looking for friends. Like, it's easy to find, hedonistic friends. Let's go party. Let's go drink. Let's have a good time.
And that's a season,
Yeah. And then
season where you need to
when shit
be
hits
happy.
the fan, it's like, that's rough,
It's crickets,
bro.
yeah.
Or they're not
Don't
around.
invite that guy.
And so you are looking for friends who are on mission with you. They're like, we are also in a lifelong covenant. We're going to need help.
Yeah.
So let me push you back to your spouse. And that's one thing Christina does brilliantly.
Yeah.
And she's always pushing you back to me.
Right.
And she's never like, yeah, Tyson, he's, XYZ,
Yeah.
but he's like, she's always kind of pumping
like,
the brakes
hey,
on the
remember?
emotions and reminding us of
You need the
what
friend
we're up
that'll
to.
screenshot when you love your husband and it'll just text you the screenshot when you're in a hard,
Yeah.
hard place.
Yeah. And, so for me, you have this friend who's, gone the distance with you in a lot of ways. And I have also a really good friend, and we've gone through conflict. But I think what has worked for us is like making sure we work it out and we go back and we'll be pissed at each other for a season.
Yeah.
But we go back and say, here's the places I was wrong.
Yeah.
Here's the places I want to do better.
And I know that you're talking to safe people that
Right.
we've agreed on. So you're not like, just but you have a safe place to be like, dude, Jules is driving me crazy and she's doing this thing. And I'm not like offended that you're talking to your friends about that because
Right.
I know that friend is always going to push you back
Right.
into the covenant.
Yeah. And I think just getting over this whole idea that like nobody needs help, like
Yeah.
that
that we can't
we've
talk about our
graduated
stuff.
from it or we've surpassed it. It's bull crap. It's not true. We all need help. This is hard. This is difficult for everyone.
Yeah.
And so we need to surround ourselves with community. One of the other things I want to say is not all community has to be friends. I think one of the biggest places of community that we've missed out on is counseling and coaching.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you guys, like, with more passion,
Look at every
like,
angle.
go to therapy. Like, go to therapy. And we have a therapist now where we literally, like, we will call her when shit hits the fan. We will call her when things get difficult. And I love that. Like, some people are like, what's the point of that? But it's like when we need a third party who is objective and has no skin in the game, it is worth $120 to me to go spend an hour talking to her to just get that third party. And now we have her. I've got her email saved.
Yep.
It's like flagged in mail.
Yeah.
And it's like whenever we're stuck, I'm just like, hey, Myra,
it's
can you help us
literally
out?
like when you have strep throat and you need antibiotics, you're not just gonna like ride that out.
You're not just gonna call your best friend and be like, what's cracking? I could use some advice.
Right. Like you're gonna
He's
go
like,
to
the doctor,
and
bro.
get antibiotics.
Yeah.
I think therapy is the same. Like our therapist knows when we show up to her Zoom call, it's because the house is on fire and we need her to help us. And there's not like, you guys are here again, and I can't believe. It's like, okay, let's go. Let's figure out. Let's use the
there's
tools.
no judgment. And so like, that's exactly what it is for me. It's a tool.
Yeah.
It's like when you go in your garage and if your kids have not desecrated it, you know where the crescent wrench is and you need the crescent wrench. You grab the crescent wrench, you use the crescent wrench, you put it back, so that it's there for the next time. That's what therapy is. Yeah. It's a tool. It doesn't have to be this like droning on for months and months and months, just bankrupting your bank account. It's a tool you grab when you need. And I think you're with a community of friends, with a community of coaches, with a community of counselors, you will discern the heart of God for your marriage ultimately. Okay, so we've got these tools: counseling, coaching, getting a strong community around you, getting a vision.
Did you do that on purpose? All C's?
No, it's just used to be a pastor, so just
deep
flows out
in
of me.
you.
It's in me. I can't escape it. And then getting a vision. I'd like to touch on that actually a little bit more. I when things get really tough, just understanding that if you make it, you're doing what 45% of people couldn't do.
Mm.
And I don't even know if we want to get into the effect divorce has on kids, because once you have kids, you really can't divorce. You don't divorce is probably a better way to say it. You're tied to your baby mama for the rest of your life.
Well,
You
I
have
think what you're trying to
figure it
say is
out.
there's no clean cut.
No.
Like you can't just cut and run.
You need them, and for guys, it becomes indentured servitude. You're going to be paying out child support, alimony till that kid's 18. For the woman, you're going to have to stretch one income. And so really what it does, it leaves you broke and brokenhearted. I thought this was worth mentioning too. Stat just came out that 70% of divorces are initiated by the wife. 70%. So when I'm like, I want this ministry to be for men, but we're married, so it's got to be for everyone. But man, I want men to step up and realize that divorce is designed to keep you brokenhearted. It's initiated by the wife. So why don't we be the ones initiating tools of healing?
Can I venture a guess as to why women are initiating divorce? Because they're afraid it will never change.
Yeah.
Because especially after you have kids, you start to get into the future mindset. So you have this baby and you're thinking okay, well, they gotta sleep on time, and they gotta have the schedule, and they gotta have this food and how many bowel movements. And so you're constantly planning for the future. And so now when you're attached to this partner that you feel, and your marriage is in a place where there is no end in sight to the insanity, divorce seems like the only option, because it's like I'm either tied to this for the next 60 years and this is unsustainable. So I don't want to do this.
As we've run this ministry with the book and the conferences, I mean, how many couples have come to us where the woman's like,
I don't want to play anymore. I don't want to do it.
Yeah, she'll be like, I will get upset. I'll say, this is it.
Yeah.
They will course correct. They will fix everything. And then 6 months later, we're right back to the same place, And so really what we want to talk about here is habits of change, creating habits of continual change.
Small changes
I think one thing that you can do, and yes, it's great, guys, your wife says it's on fire. Okay, go get the fire department and get that thing out. I understand that. Go do it. Let the lady clean up the stair stepper while you're on it, because it's a mess. But man, after that, you need a date night. After that, you need sanctuary. After that, you need tools that are going to keep you on the right track. And for me, it is math. Why are you laughing?
I knew you were going to say that. Marriage is math. Blah, blah,
it
blah.
Is math.
And every time you say that, I'm like, watch this. Math.
I mean, but guys are so dumb.
But you're not wrong.
Guys are so dumb because it'll be on fire. And they'll put it out with, this grand effort.
You cannot systematize me, but he can. It works.
They'll freaking, what's the book? Date your spouse again and start over from the beginning. And, they'll bring her flowers every day and chocolates every day. And they're there every day. You're bringing her coffee in the morning, and then slowly over time. You do that 3 or 4 times, and the girl's like, I don't even want the flowers and the chocolate anymore because I know how this ends. Yeah.
I'm not going to do it again, which I want.
You're like God. I want obedience, not sacrifice.
I want to validate the men and say, yes, your effort, it's not wasted. But I also want to validate the women and say, you're right, you can't do this forever. This is unsustainable. And so when you finally say, I don't want to do this anymore, I think the next step is not see a divorce lawyer. The next step is say with your spouse, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
We have to change something.
And we've had
together.
that conversation.
Yeah.
A bunch of times.
We have.
I think we've said it to each other.
It was terrifying. Because in my mind, I was like, does this mean we're done? Does this mean that there's nowhere for us to go?
That version of us did die.
Yeah. And you do have to sit in that space.
Yeah. I think what you need is proactive systems that solidify change and transformation.
Yes.
So you need, this is why we will be hounding everyone about sanctuary.
Compost pile.
A sanctuary is an hour a week that is set apart to fight, to have difficult conversations, to keep moving that ball down the road, getting closer to.
We do a whole podcast on sanctuary, and I'll link to it in the show notes because it's you need it. Everybody does.
Show notes before, so
in the episode notes.
I don't know.
How old am I?
I wish we were cool on YouTube and I'd be like, it's right there. Just click that link. But I have no idea how to do that. But yeah, so get your sanctuary. Really, it is math. Sanctuary, date night, those are on the calendar every single week. You've got 1 trip a year you're taking with just your spouse, 1 trip a year you're taking as an entire family. You just do those things.
Mhm.
And you come back in a year and tell me that thing is not blossoming and thriving.
Okay, but I do want to say, don't do them all at once. Like, don't try to make all those systems in place at once, because it's like you go from doing none of those things to be like, I got to plan 2 hours a week. Like, I barely get my kids in bed on time every night. So, like, maybe you just plan like 15 minutes before bed, you chatting with your partner and say, like, what would it look like for us to have a date night every week? Like, what would we need to do
Yeah.
to make which one of us can get the bait? Like, just start talking through what it could look like to put a sanctuary on the calendar, put a date night on the calendar, go take a trip together, and don't stress out by just trying to like throw it all and
Yeah.
make it
Again,
happen.
the grand gesture is not gonna
It's not
work.
going to work. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the key is communication. We should be
Key is
talking about it
communication. And I think it's, long-term small changes
over time.
are going to affect the outcome
Yeah.
overall, just like
That's true.
everything else in life. And that's honestly what your wife is looking for. She's looking for those small changes. She's looking for you to
For
stick
change
the
to see.
landing and keep on going, and for the grand gesture to be, micro gestures over a long
Yeah.
period of time.
What are the men looking for? What are you looking for?
Peace and serenity
Mhm.
and sex.
Okay, I'm not going to podcast on that right now.
But I mean, it really is. I mean, I think in the short term, that's what men want. In the long term, I know what the cry of my heart is. I want to be loved for who I actually am.
Mm.
I want to be honored and respected for the places I succeed, and I want to be encouraged in the places where I fail.
Mm.
If I could have those things, then I really do think I could last forever.
I love that.
So you wanted to talk about a conversation where we were at the edge of the end,
Yes. I mean,
kind of
I
wrapping
want
this thing up.
I think I want to know. Well, I've never actually like asked you this question. We experienced it together, but what was a moment where we were on the edge of the end and you decided to either make a change or make a covenant, or like something clicked for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think of one of the more recent ones. This is like, we've written a book, we've done the conferences, and I just remember exposing myself a place of wounding, and it being met with lots of anger,
Mm.
which was the right thing because it was something that would tick most
Well,
people
anger
off.
was a secondary emotion,
Arguably, yeah.
but in the moment, it was
Yeah.
100%.
But I
anger.
remember saying, I can't do this anymore.
Mm.
And you looking back at me and saying, what are you saying? Are you saying that you're done?
It was terrifying. Yeah.
And it was in that moment I said, and this is the power of anger,
Mm.
whether it's a primary or secondary or tertiary emotion, the power of anger that we often overlook is its ability to get you to the truth, and the truth that can set you free.
Mm.
If people say you
Dang.
say things in anger that you don't mean, no, you say things in anger that you didn't even know. You don't even know why that's true.
Mm.
And so in the moment where I said, I can't do this anymore, it was actually the most true thing I could say, but I wasn't asking for a divorce.
Mm.
I was asking for a different marriage.
Mm.
I was asking for a new transforming of this. I didn't want to lose you. I didn't want to be separated from you. When I said it in anger, that's what I thought I meant.
Yeah.
But as we thought about it and sifted through it, and as you were bold to be like, what do you mean by that? Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
I realized actually what I want is I want a safe place to change. I want a safe place to be who I am. I want to be able to make mistakes. I want to be able to get addicted to things and wean off of them and figure it out and blow it and mess up. And also understanding that, living in the tension that oftentimes that hurts you and it hurts our relationship. And I want to walk through this kind of stuff together.
Yeah.
And so I think out of that, we built something completely new again for the fourth time or whatever in the 16 years we've been married. And so that, what was your perspective on that moment?
I mean, I was terrified. Tyson never gives up, ever. And Tyson is a man of his word, down to like he told the kids he would be there at 2:35, and he's showing up at 2:34 just so he makes sure he's there. And
2:34 is a little late.
Okay. And so I think in that moment when you were like, I don't want to do this, I can't do this anymore, I was like, what? But that's what you do. Like, you do this. Like this. Then that's why I think it wasn't a bold like wisdom, like, what do you mean by that? It was a panic, like, what are you saying? Like, because if you give up, I'm gonna give up. I'm not gonna be in this longer than you're gonna be in this. And so it was terrifying. I was scared. I think the anger in the moment, it was definitely anger, and it was mean and fearful.
It's really good to hear you say that.
I'm sorry that I treated you so terribly. But I think we figured out through therapy, because this was one of the times where we called
Oh, yeah.
our therapist and we were like, hey, we're on fire. She's like, see you Thursday. We realized it was betrayal, and it was fear, and it was everything that I thought we had built just crumbled in a second, unnecessarily, because it didn't actually crumble. The baseline was still good.
Mhm.
I just couldn't see the baseline
Mhm.
anymore because I was so shocked
Yeah.
that you were like taking your hands off the wheel. But you taking your hands off the wheel and saying we need help was the greatest thing it
Yeah.
ever done.
I mean, and through the therapy process, I did realize, like, I felt like I was strapped down by 1,000, because you're like, what's wrong with this? Like, this is a great marriage. This is a great life.
Yeah.
We got these beautiful kids. We got this beautiful house. We've got these, really flexible jobs, yada, yada, yada. We got this ministry.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I feel like I'm strapped down by 1,000 tiny ropes
Mm.
to the point where I can't move. And what I realized in that process is that I had been trying to become what I thought you wanted me to be. And you realize through that process that that's not even who you wanted.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't want strapped down Ty,
Yeah.
who's just trying to placate and meet all of your desires before they're even, known. But you actually wanted to be
Yeah.
with the true me. And so the thing that I actually wanted the whole time was the thing I actually had. But because I was having this conversation with your inner self without talking to your outer self,
Yeah.
I was becoming something that neither of us wanted.
Mm.
And I think that realization in therapy was like, oh my God.
Could
This
you
is
have
it.
figured it out on your own? Could you have figured it out on a drive or
Divorced, lonely, and drunk, maybe, is when I would have figured it out.
Dang.
Without help, without my best friend to kick my butt and push me back in the ring, without Myra, the therapist, to say, here's what I think is actually going on. Really, she led us there with questions.
Yeah, she did.
And so, no, it would have taken a long time, and it would have been too late, And so that's why therapy is so important. Because I mean, just the way the brains work neurologically, I have to go there a little bit, is like, as we are bonding, as we are pair bonding, our neurons are receiving dopamine and serotonin. And that's what actually bonds us together, is these positive, feelings. And that's why love is so powerful. They say it's as powerful as cocaine to the brain. Like, it's a shot of all the good stuff. And so over time, your neurons get used to expecting that. And then when they're not getting the same amount of serotonin and dopamine, it's shocked by that. And so the surprise factor now starts to rewire the brain. And now your relationship experiences cortisol, stress and adrenaline, fight or flight. And then all of a sudden, your neurons are telling you that your spouse is not a safe place, And so your relationship is literally changing, because the way your brain is mapped is literally changing. And so when you get someone like a therapist who's objective and outside of it, they can look at this and they can see, okay, here's the places where you're blind. You can't see because your neurons are protecting your own mind from any of that negative emotion. And so here's the places you can't see. And here's the places you can't see. And here's the places collectively you can't see because you're blocking it out because you don't want to know.
Yeah.
And then we actually get to our true selves.
Yeah. Remember when she told me, I was like, what do you want? Like a cookie or something? And she's like, well, excuse me. So that's contempt. And I was like, no, it's not. I'm like, what does he want? And she's like, no, that is contempt. And I'm like, shoot, like you could have never been like, excuse me,
I
pause,
tried.
that's
I tried
contempt.
to tell you there was contempt
You
going
did.
on, And you're like, I'll show you contempt.
Yeah, literally. But it is helpful to have the therapist, and it's helpful if they're sweet to be like, let's just back it up. This is a fight or flight response for you, and you now being contemptuous with him, because you're trying to protect something in you, and so there is like that's gonna forever. It lives rent free in my head. That moment.
Me too.
Okay.
I replay it all the time as I fall asleep at night. And I was content. Sure. And I did want a cookie.
That's going on, Sanctuary.
As we wrap up here, what advice would you give to the wife that comes to you and says, I'm done?
Dude, I don't think that I would give her advice. I would say, I get it. And then I would ask her why. Like, what part of this are you done with? Are you done with the whole thing? Are you done with the person? Are you done with the marriage? Are you done with the exhaustion? Like, what part are you done with? And then I would ask her if she wanted my advice, if she wanted my perspective. And I have yet to tell for someone to say no, they don't, except for my 9-year-old. She has said no, thank you. But usually people are like, yeah, sure, give me your opinion. And I would say it's probably time to go to therapy and get a third party before doing the divorce lawyers. You can call, you can set up the appointment, but there might be like a couple more steps before there. Yeah. And then I would say, we have this conference that you should come to.
Yeah.
Even if it's your last resort.
Yes. Yeah, I'm actually really comfortable with the conference being a last resort. Because here's the thing. Your marriage needs rite of passage. They need these moments, these forks in the road that are going to make or break you. You need them.
Yeah.
And then you need to re-up in those moments, decide to keep going, put down some kind of memorandum, a pile of rocks on the ground, or a double D anniversary, whatever it is. You need to put that on the ground and say, this day, everything changed, so that you can look back at that with intention every time things get tough and go, remember, we re-upped, remember, we decided again. And so when guys come to me saying, I think this is it, I'm done, I'm tired, I say, hey, do something crazy. Come to this conference. Go to any conference. Yeah. Go to therapy. Just do something that changes the pattern of behavior that you've been existing in, hoping that it would change everything. Yeah. You need to. So I think the grand gesture is good. Do it, and then follow it up with
small changes.
The process. Yeah. Yeah. The date nights. Well, really, you're not going to go on date night when you hate each other, right? So you start with Sanctuary, and those are explosive, but they're only packed in an hour, and they're in a public place, and when you pay the check, the fight is is done until the next week. And so get your butt to Sanctuary. Yeah. Then when you start to like each other again, start that date night. Then when you guys are starting to thrive again, make sure that Sanctuary is staying on the calendar no matter what, because this is what guys do. Okay, we're good. We're fixed.
There's nothing to fight about.
Funny. I had a guy who literally came to me. I'm like, how's your marriage? He's like, dude, it's so good, man. Like, things have just been awesome and been great. And then I get home and you're like, dude, I just talked to her and they are not good. They are
There's
not great.
nothing good.
And so I go back to him, or he, it explodes and implodes. And he comes back like, what did I do? And I was like, are you guys doing Sanctuary? He's like, no. Are you guys doing date nights? No. Like, what did you think was going to happen? He's like, but we were good. I was like, man, under the surface.
What's happening there though? What's happening? Because both of them are right. He believes that it's good.
It's calm. It's there's serenity. There's peace.
To him. And she believes it's not good because it's not to her. And so what's happening is there's no communication. She has no place to say, hey, we're not good, because there's a million children around and they're at work. And he's like, yeah, we're great, because there's no space for her to bring stuff up, So I love that specific example, because it's like they were both they weren't wrong. They were exactly right. Yeah. But they were just.
And so, that's where I'm like, guys, it's on the calendar. It's immovable. Like a spirit of the law, of course, not the letter of the law, but man, Sanctuary has to happen every week. Yeah. At least bi-weekly. Like, you need that space to fight and
start bi-weekly.
And
start
figure out. Yeah. Yeah. And that's in the good seasons, in the bad. In the good seasons, it's so awesome because you're just having some breakfast tacos, hanging out with your bestie, But in the worst seasons, and when you're on the way to a hard season, it provides you a place to dig through this stuff. And so you don't get blindsided with, I've been unhappy for X amount of years. Yeah. You're actually like, have a place for this to slow drip instead of pressure cook, Best way I could put it.
Yeah. So I love it.
If you're on the edge of the end, I want to encourage you guys. The conference is coming up. It is in 2 weeks. And it might just be that jolt of electricity that you need to revive that thing and give you guys that rite of passage to remember why you got in this in the first place, and to give you vocabulary on how to move forward. If you're thriving, man, still go to Sanctuary, and I think that's it.
Yeah, that's it.